how to email a professor for a scholarship. Here are 20 tips. Number one, email as soon as you see the scholarship advertised. Now, why it is important? The reason is that against every position announced, there would be thousands of emails. Okay, now standing among those thousand emails is quite challenging. So mostly what happens is that the first few emails they directly come under the radar of the professor. Professor goes through them, but that's not the case for an email that is coming after 1,000 emails or so. So when you see an ad for a PhD position or for a master by research position, try to apply as soon as possible. Number two, use the same font style and size throughout your email. Now, what happens is that when there are multiple font styles in email, it shows that there is a direct copy and paste. And eventually, what that means is that the student is lazy. The student did not write an email from scratch, and that in a way goes against the student, or in other words, it gives a bad impression to the professor about the student, and so it's unlikely that the professor would reply to that particular email. Number three, attach your CV and transcript. Now, what happens is that sometimes students they send an email and then they in the email they mention that okay, let me know if you need my CV or I'll send my CV upon request. Now, professors are usually very busy. In this approach, it requires the professor to email you that okay, send me your CV. So it's an extra step of communication, which means taking more time. Now, again, it would go against you. So right away, when you're writing an email, attach your CV and your transcript. Number four, ensure there are no spelling or name errors in your email. Now, it's important, and the reason is that because when you're writing an email to a professor, that would be a short passage, maybe around 200, 250 words. So you need to be careful not to do those kind of spelling or typo mistakes because it would show that the student is careless. If you can't write a 200-word email in a careful way, how can you write maybe uh, 200 page dissertation or a 10-page paper more carefully? So again, make sure that when you are sending an email, make sure there are no typo or grammar issues in the body or in the text of your email. Number five, professors are busy. Keep your email brief and focused. Now, sometimes when I receive emails, the email is like, around maybe 500 words, 700 words. So it's more like reading a whole page of a document. Now, if there is one email or two emails, it would still be fine to read those emails. But because against, as I mentioned, that against every position announced, there are, you know, at least 500 emails. So if you have written a very long email, it's unlikely that the professor will read them. So try to keep it brief, maybe within 200 words, max 250 words, but don't go beyond that. Number six, address the professor by name to personalize your email. Now, again, what happens is that sometimes the students they just say, okay, dear sir or dear prof or hi sir. So it doesn't really, the professor doesn't feel that it's directly written to him or her. So it's much better that you write the name of the professor and then you write the rest of the email. But doing so also make sure that it's not that you're sending the email to one professor and you write the name of another. If you're doing copy and pasting, so be careful over there. Number seven, start your with your most impressive achievement to grab attention. Now, as I mentioned that the professors are busy, they're not going to give a lot of time to your email. So you have, in best case, 5 to 10 seconds in which you need to grab the attention of the professor or hook the attention of the professor. So upfront, you need to mention something that makes you stand out. Like, for example, if you are a 4x4 GPA holder, you can mention that, or you have published a paper in a good journal, you can mention that particular thing. So something that makes you stand out, mention it right away. Number eight, tailor your email to align with professor's research projects. Now, generally, we connect very well when we speak the language of the person who is listening to us. For example, if you are talking to sportsmen and you're talking about, let's suppose, history, it would not connect very well. But if you're talking to a sportsman and you're talking about sports, that way he or she connects very well. So in the same way, when you are emailing a professor and if you are speaking his or her language, which means that you're talking about his projects, about his big area and how it aligns with your, that way the professor will connect more with your email. Number 9, do not send the same email to 10 professors. Now, what happens is that there are at times students who send the same email to 10 professors in maybe in a department. Now, professors are often very much connected. They talk to each other, and also, from the email, it's very clear that whether the email is personalized or it's not. So, generally, it's a bad practice. Maybe some students think that it's more kind of an optimized way or efficient way, but in a way, it goes against the student. Number 10, crisply explain how your experience matches the scholarship. So it's important that if the position is, let's suppose, in cybersecurity, you need to mention how your background, perhaps in cybersecurity, is aligned with that particular field. If the scholarship is announced in the field of cybersecurity and you come from, let's suppose, um, um, literature or from humanities, it's not connecting, and it's again pointless to apply to that position. Number 11, use a professional email address. So oftentimes students are affiliated with some institution, like for example, an educational institution. So try to use that email address and send from that one instead of sending from your Gmail or from your Yahoo account, because that kind of sounds more professional. Number 12, mention the specific scholarship you are applying for. So at times there are multiple scholarships open, and you might be eligible for all. So it in a way makes the job of the professor easier if you right away mention that which particular scholarship you are applying for. Number 13, use key terms aligned with the professor's current research. So again, it's the same that if you're talking in a language that the professor understands, the professor is likely to connect with your email and maybe you will get a reply for your email. So use the terms that are more familiar with the professor. For example, if I'm reading an email and the email mentions about cybersecurity, software engineering, artificial intelligence, I feel that okay, it's a relevant email. Number 14, express genuine enthusiasm to work under their guidance. Now, nowadays, it's more relevant because with ChatGPT and such kind of generative AI tools, people write generic emails and send it. But it's very obvious that the email is written by a human or is it written by some generative AI tool. So my suggestion is that try to put that extra effort, write the email yourself, because that way it sounds more human and it would show that you are genuinely interested in the in working with that particular professor. Number 15, use a clear and informative subject line with the purpose of the email. So the subject line is the first thing that a person would note in your email. So try to put a good subject line, something that directly shows that you are a potential PhD student in a particular area and you're aiming for this kind of scholarship. Number 16, better not mention any personal disadvantage. So sometimes students send emails where they mention a particular disadvantage, like maybe that they're from an underdeveloped country or that they do not have the right infrastructure to, let's suppose, send an email and they went to another place. So these kind of things at that stage, I think it's not relevant. So better not mention it in the email. Later on in the interview, maybe if you feel like some certain things should be shared, then you can share, but in the email, I don't think it's relevant. Number 17, if you don't hear back, follow after a week. So what happens is that, as I mentioned, that the professor is likely going to receive a lot of emails against a position announced. So if you do not hear back from the professor, it's okay to sort of after a week or 4 or 5 days, you can give a soft reminder, and maybe the professor it would trigger your email to him or her and might get back to you. Number 18, don't overdo the jargon. Make it easy to read the email. Now, some people think that if they use very these buzzwords or these very kind of high frequency words in the email, it might impress the professor. I don't think that's the case. Usually, what we prefer is that something that is communicated in an easy to understand way. We really like that because if I don't understand something, it's unlikely that I would reply to it. At the same time, if the English is so difficult, there are in terms which I don't understand. Um, any professor would not go and try to Google the words 5 times. So try to use simple language to communicate the point, not to sort of show that um, um, your vocabulary is very good. Number 19, firstly identify scholarship and then email. So as I mentioned that there might be multiple kinds of scholarships available. So it's much better to mention that to what kind of email you're applying, what kind of scholarship you're applying, and that would make the job of the professor more easier. And lastly, number 20, hyperlink your relevant publications or achievements. So if you're mentioning something like that in your in the body of your email, try to hyperlink. Like for example, if there is a research paper that you want to bring to the attention of the professor, just give a link. So the professor don't have to Google it separately. You just need to click on the link and would right away be able to access the particular document or any resource that you want to bring into his or her attention. So these are some of the tips that would help you to write a better email to a supervisor or to a professor with whom you want to do your PhD. Thank you.